Welcome back to Man vs. Meeple, the show where we talk about everything board game related. I am your host, Jeremy Salinas, back again with David Waybright to talk to you guys about First Class. This is a really cool game, and it's by Helmut Ole, a guy who has typically done a lot of 18X style games. Although, a couple years ago, he came out with Trombone and a very popular game in our gaming group called Russian Railroads.
Oh, yes. You introduced me to Russian Railroads a year and a half ago or so, and I absolutely shot myself for not having played it sooner. It's quickly become one of my favorite worker placement games for sure.
So this game here shares a lot of similarities between that, and we'll talk about those as we get into the review. So they've kind of boiled it down into a card game this time, right?
Yeah, it's a card drafting game. I mean, it almost kind of still feels like worker placement, but you're literally drafting cards. What I really like about it is that it kind of takes that whole train thing and zooms in a little bit. You really get the feel, the conductor level view, if you will, going car by car on your train rather than sort of the macro, although it has a bit of the macro aspect as well.
So to understand the game, you guys really need to understand the player board. Each player will start with a player board in front of them, and on that player board you're going to have a space for two conductors. That's because you're going to have two trains that you'll build out through the course of the game, and each train can have a maximum of 10 cars in it. You're also going to have a spot up here in which you're going to have your actual rail line.
Yeah.
And your train will go out this direction, which you'll be building out. And you have some spots in it already that are pre-built into it. These will give you points during the scoring rounds, which will be 3 scoring rounds per game. And on the bottom, you have a space for coins. There's 3 slots or columns. And when you fill these columns, they have to be fully filled on the left-hand side before you can start filling the middle, and then finally filling the last. And these are special abilities that you can use during the game. So the actual game, though, is all cards, right?
Yeah.
You're going to have train cars. There's 6 different train cars, and they go numerically from 0 points, or a 0 car, all the way up to 12 points.
Yeah, they all start at 0, so as you're adding train cars, there's zeros, and then the whole point of the game is to upgrade those things for points. That's really where the meat and potatoes of the points are.
Yeah, and when you upgrade these, you have to upgrade from a 0 to a 1, and then a 1 to a 2, and so forth. The other cool thing about the game is that when you upgrade them, they have to be in a specific order. The 1s have to come before the 0s, the 2s have to come before the 1s, so you can't have a 12 car all the way at the end of your train and have a 0 started.
Right, basically the higher number needs to be on the left at all times.
Right, and you can upgrade your trains in any order that you wish. So you can have a fully built train on your top row and then have basically nothing on the bottom if you so wish.
Yeah, that's a completely viable strategy to go heavy on one train and kind of disregard the other a little bit.
So when you play the game, this is how it works. There is a deck of cards, and that deck of cards is going to be labeled X. That's a base game that you're going to, or a base set of cards you're going to be using for every game. Each of those, there's going to be 3 decks labeled 1 through 3, and that's for the rounds that you're going to be playing in the game.
Rounds.
So each of these decks will be played twice, basically. So at the end, you're going to be playing through the 1 deck twice, the 2 deck twice, and the 3 deck twice. At the end of each of them, there'll be a scoring round. Now, the cool portion about the game is that you're also going to intermix it with the modules.
Yeah, there's 5 modules?
There's 5 different modules, which add a whole bunch of different abilities and parameters in the game. We'll come back to the modules because that's really kind of a pro in our review. You're going to mix those modules into the base set, and then you're going to deal out 3 rows of 6 cards per. It doesn't matter how many players are playing.
No matter the player count, it's the same number of cards, which is nice because sometimes in a 2-player game, you don't get the selection that you do in a 4-player game. This one, you get the selection, but the interesting aspect of how you select your cards really kind of takes them all away.
So, as David alluded to, it's a worker placement, but not really. You're not actually placing workers on the board, but you are taking that card and doing something with it. So, during a round of play, each player at the table will be able to take 3 cards. 1 per time around the table.
1 at a time.
So basically on a player's turn, they're going to pick any of the cards that are available, and they're going to take it and enact that ability. Now, those abilities are such things as moving your conductor, upgrading trains, adding new trains, adding onto your train routes, and then a whole bunch of other things that come in with the modules, right?
Right, yeah. And first, we've got modules A and B mixed into here, which usually offer some one-time effects like some money or some doubler cards that allow you to double the points on any given car you might have.
Right.
Like we said, Jeremy said the modules are really sort of one of the cool pros of this. We'll get to that. But there's a wide variety of cards that come out here.
Right.
And depending on what ones you use, some of them that have one-time effects, you're just going to discard face down in this pile right here next to your board. if you're adding to your route, you're going to add that card to your route.
Right. So when you take a card, you enact ability, and you put it down face down on your side of the board. The cool portion is, depending upon the number of players, that could wipe the entire row that's available. So, in a 2-player game, if 2 cards are taken from a row, all the other cards go away.
In that row.
In that row. In a 3-player game, if 3 cards are taken from a row, that entire row goes away.
Yeah, you can really affect your opponents in this.
Absolutely.
You might have the card you need in a couple rows, but you might want to target the row that has fewer cards in it with the hopes of wiping that row completely and taking out the options for your opponent.
Yeah. So that's basically a round. Once a round is done, you start another round. You put up 18 more cards, and you start picking them as normal. And then at the end of every 2 rounds, you're going to have a scoring round.
Right.
The scoring rounds work like this. You will score points first for the train routes that you've built out. And I'm not sure we kind of alluded to this, but when you take these train route cards, you're going to actually expand out your train route from your board.
Right.
And these will go just like this. And your train will move down into these locations when you get train cards, right? You're going to be scoring points depending upon where you are on this. And the cool portion is you can score those points multiple times through the course of the game for everything that you've already hit.
Right. You'll score the points as you play the game, and then during this sort of scoring phase, the benefits on these cards come into play. So you can chain together these incredible combos where as you go down as far as you've moved out, again, it's a lot like in Russian Railroads, it's a lot like the industry track where you're moving along and tagging these bonuses, but you get to do them every like 3 times throughout this game. So you might be hitting a card that lets you move your conductors up, or hitting another card that lets you move your train up, which is a really cool combo because that actually allows you to maybe even use yet another card during that scoring phase. It's very, very cool mechanic.
The second portion that's going to happen is you're going to score your actual trains. Now, the important portion to understand here is that you're only going to score victory points for where your conductor is in here. So if you have a bunch of cars that say 12, but your guy is only on this one, you're only going to score the 12 here and the 12 here.
Right.
So you really need to be not only upgrading your trains, but also moving that conductor down the line.
Yeah, that's what I try to get that conductor out as soon as I can because it's very painful when you get to that point and you've upgraded some cars that you can't score because you haven't gotten your conductor out there.
Right. Some other important portions to talk about the game are the actual coin aspect. Now, this is cool. As we mentioned, on your turn, you're allowed to take a card and enact the ability, but also you have an optional ability of using as many coins as you wish off of your board.
Right.
Depending upon the column of the coin that you take it from, that enacts a certain ability for you, either moving your train 1 space, moving your conductor 1 space, adding cars, or upgrading cars.
Right.
Another ability that you have is really cool is you can spend 4 coins at any time to buy a game-in bonus card. Each player will start with one of these, but these are very much like Stone Age, where they give you multipliers at the end of the game for different cards that you have collected.
And these can be huge points at the end of the game.
Absolutely.
If you're successful in grabbing a few cards that synergize so that you're getting maybe 7 or 8 points for every conductor card you've taken.
Yeah.
And then you spend a lot of time getting those conductors on both of your trains out there, that's going to be massive points at the end of the game. And it's really fun, too, because I love games that can have that swing. You never really know exactly who's in the lead in this game. I mean, you can look at someone's train and go, oh, my gosh, I haven't upgraded. But then someone can come back at the end and go, well, I've got 30 points in conductors, which is a huge swing in this game. I mean, you do go around the scoring board a few times.
About 3 times. I mean, the typical scores we've had has been in the 150 range.
Yeah.
Another cool portion of the game is, again, borrows from Russian Railroads. When you build your 5th train in either one of your trains, you get to add a special card. There's 4 special cards, meaning that you're only going to use 2 of them. And those allow you to either move your train, get some money, move your conductors forward.
Right. Yeah, I like to call those like milestone bonuses.
Yeah.
When games have that aspect where it's like there's a few different things you can do, and about halfway through completing those things, you get a bonus. It's just like that little carrot that's dangling out there because you want to get out there. And oftentimes, if you pick the right bonus, you're able to chain that into a much bigger bonus for you when it happens.
Yeah. And then there's also trains for when you build your 9th train, the 10-1 automatically comes on. That's the locomotive that is actually pulling the train. So there's a lot of stuff going on here. Let's talk about our pros and cons.
Yeah.
Do you have any cons?
No, I really don't. I think this When you told me about this game and you were explaining to me, I thought it sounds almost too much like Russian Railroads, but it is not. I mean, it as you play it, you'll recognize some of those same touchstones that you experienced, but only in a positive way.
Right.
So if anyone's thinking, I've played enough of the train games from this guy, this is a really new, good experience. And like I said, the way it zooms in really kind of makes it a little bit more intimate as you're building out the cars.
We've touched on this a lot. The combo system in this game is wonderful.
Yeah.
It's completely satisfying. There can be turns where you can do, literally by taking a single card off the board, you can do 7 or 8 different things at once. By adding trains, getting rid of coins, adding more trains, adding your 6s in, which move your train forward, and then having that score at the end of the round. And it's that pure satisfaction of doing one thing, which leads into many, many things. And that's what this game has, to me, over Russian Railroads.
More so, for sure.
Very much
I
so.
think Russian has it, but I think this does have it more so. One of the things that this has, I'm trying to think of some other games that have this, where you have this sort of ongoing, the coin system, that you can use those as much as you want, which really can turn one of those combos like you were talking into. That's where you can really blow those things up.
Yeah.
Because you might take a card that would really benefit if you had 2 more cars. Oh, I can spend $2 to add 2 more cars to my train right now.
Right.
And do that really quickly, then take the card. So those coins offer a lot of flexibility to really make some of those exciting combos happen. Which that I really like. And it's easy to overlook that because it's just something you can do a lot. I would say the combos, when you're on the receiving end of a combo, it's fantastic. Again, with long combos, it's one of those things where as an opponent, you're sitting there thinking like, oh my gosh, what is he doing over there?
But even then, we've played this, I've played this a 4-player game, and it plays extremely quickly. I mean, you can literally play this game in probably about an hour and 10 minutes for 4 players.
Yeah, it's really fast. I mean, the mechanics of it are very, very quick. There's not, in fact, even though there's 18 cards out there, I really don't feel like there's a lot of AP opportunity here because there's, even though the cards look very different here as you're looking at it maybe for the first time, there's really some set categories here.
Yeah.
You're either going to be putting trains here or trying to get your conductors or move your locomotive.
Right.
That really is kind of what it boils down to.
That's just the base game, really. Now, once you start getting into the modules, I played 4 of the 5 modules, and they add a lot of different variety to the game. They can all be mixed and mingled as you so choose. The ones that really stand out to me are the multiplier ones. I'm not sure you've played the passenger ones.
I haven't played the passenger luggage one.
It's awesome. It's really, really cool. You add passengers onto your things, and then those give you points just like your train tracks by adding additional things as you go through the game. There's even a murder mystery.
Yeah, that's the one neither of us played that we really need to try. It's like Murder on the Orient Express mixed into this game where there's like, someone's the murderer and you're actually trying to like uncover clues and use investigation tokens, which boggles my mind that they've incorporated some aspect like that into this game.
There's cards that are very powerful in the game, but they give you investigative points, which means that you could possibly be eliminated because one player who has the most of those is out of the game no matter how many points that they score.
Yeah, that's very cool.
This is a really, really fascinating game. I played it once at BGG Con. I was tired. It was like 11:30 at night. It's probably later than that. And I kind of brushed it off, and this may have actually made my top 10 last year. It's that good.
Yeah, if had I been able to play it, it probably would have had a really good opportunity to crack into my top 10 too. This kind of came out of nowhere for me. I mean, I only heard about it just shortly before BGG Con. And then I know it was there, and it's just now hit stores. I mean, I just happened to order a copy, and I think our local store just got one. Yeah. So it's going to be a challenging one to find, but this is a great game for anyone. And by all means, if you're a fan of Russian Railroads, buy this game immediately.
Well, if you're a fan of just combination game, games where there's a lot of different things to do and a lot of variables. This is one of those games you can play probably a dozen or more times and not feel, with the same module, not feel like you've experienced everything that you can. Yeah,
they've done a really good job with this. The components are very nice. In fact, the box itself has this really nice insert, almost like a la Dominion, where you're able to organize the modules and put everything away really nicely because, putting those cards together and choosing the modules can be a little bit of a setup, but not with this insert they have here.
Fantastic, guys.
Yeah.
Go check this one out, First Class by Z-Man Games, just being released out to the public. Make sure you guys make comments below. Check us out on Facebook and like us on Twitter, or follow us on Twitter. All
Follow
those
us
things
everywhere.
That we do. Yeah, it doesn't matter. And check us out next time on Man vs. Meeple.
Bye-bye.
Season 1 of Man vs. Meeple is sponsored by TMG Games, publisher of great games like Yokohama, Guilds of London, and the soon-to-be-released Colosseum.